Welcome to TD on TV. I'm your host, State Representative Tommy Vitolo. You're watching Brookline Interactive Group. Today is Thursday, March 9th, and we have a great show for you. We have Amanda Hirst, the director of the Public Library of Brookline, as our guest, and we will get to her, but first, the news. U.S. President Biden is expected to announce his fiscal year 24 budget priorities today, which are likely to include increased taxes on corporations and the highest income earners. Florida Republicans plan to tighten their abortion ban, reducing the time in which someone can get an abortion from 15 weeks to 6 weeks. This comes as Walgreens continues to face pushback for their decision to stop offering abortion pills. The Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts ruled that the use of rude, personal, and disrespectful words at public hearings is covered in the right to free speech. Remember, just because you can be crude doesn't mean that you should. With COVID-19 cases falling, the state will close the remaining 11 Stop the Spread testing sites by the end of the month. During the MBTA fare-free bus program, ridership increased by more than double, unlike the rest of the MBTA bus lines where ridership is down about 21%. The town of Brookline has released a diverse and inclusive business directory, highlighting Brookline businesses that are women, BIPOC, LGBTQ, and veteran-owned. The directory also includes accessible businesses. The 7th and 8th grade basketball finals are today. The boys play at the Brookline High School Schlunz Gym at 3:30, Pierce against Florida Ruff and Ridley. The girls at 4:45, also at Schlunz, Pierce versus Baker. Without further ado, we're going to cut to a previously recorded interview with Amanda Hirst, director of the Public Libraries of Brookline. And we're here today with Director of Libraries, Amanda Hirst, here on Brookline Interactive Group. Amanda, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I was swinging by your office the other day, but it didn't say Director of Libraries on the door. What does it actually say on the door? What are you really?
It says Town Librarian, and I love that title.
I do too. The libraries have been really important over the past few years, and you haven't been here for a few years. You've just been here since August. So why don't we start, Amanda? Tell us what you've been doing your whole life before you got here. Where are you coming from? What do you like?
Well, I grew up in the Midwest, in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I received my undergrad at the University of Cincinnati. And after college, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, but I decided that a job at the library would be a good place to help me decide. And so I started working at the library in Cincinnati, and after about 2 weeks, decided that this was the career for me. And so I looked into how I could make this a career path. And I learned that one of the things that I needed to do was get a master's degree in library and information science. And there are about 50 schools across the country that offer that program. And at the time, my partner and I were looking to move elsewhere outside of the Midwest. And I told him at the time that I would move anywhere that had a library school for me to attend. And so we were looking at the Boston area at Simmons University. And then we were also looking at the University of Washington in Seattle. And it just so happened that the stars aligned for us to move to Washington State and for me to attend the University of Washington. And that's where I worked for the last 20 years in libraries there with the King County Library System. They're a little bit different than how libraries are run in Massachusetts. And it was a 50-branch system that spanned the entire county area and had a large budget with thousands of staff. And I worked in various roles there, all the way up from page, all the way up to management. with my last role being a librarian services manager, where I was in charge of programs, services, and outreach for the city of Bellevue, Washington, which is right across Lake Washington from Seattle. And in that role, I supervised a team of librarians, and we worked on innovative programming and partnerships within the community. But then COVID happened, and as one did, we reevaluated our life. We realized that it felt like a missed opportunity to not live in New England. And so we decided to try life on the other coast and moved about a year and a half ago to this area. And then I looked for a job, and the Brookline opportunity opened, and everything fell into place.
I love it. Before we go into the future, I still want to talk a little bit about the past. Walk us through the Lunar New Year celebration in the Coolidge Corner Library. It's fairly recent, and I had a great time, and I want other folks to hear about it.
Oh, I'm so glad you were there. So the Lunar New Year program is a wonderful partnership that the library has been able to establish with the Asian community here in Brookline. And we have a mid-autumn festival, and then we also partner on the Lunar New Year program. And both are really special, and we have wonderful attendance and community support for those programs. And our library staff work very hard to put together a really wonderful event for the community. And so with the Lunar New Year program, we had a number of folks performing. We had traditional Chinese dances, and then we also had the traditional lion dance that took place at the library. And the thing that is really special about that, it's an all-female led lion dance team. So, and I think I heard from our staff that over the course of that program at the Coolidge Corner Library, we had 350 people come through the library per hour during that program. So it was also very well attended and of interest to the community.
It was, and one of the things that I liked about it was communities, right? It was clear that folks from different communities within Brookline were there, but it was also clear that there were people who don't live in Brookline who were there, and that was great too, right? It's great to sort of encourage folks to cross those invisible boundaries between Norfolk County and Suffolk County, between Brookline and Boston. So thank you for that event. I'm sure it's not going away. It'll come by about once a year. What's in the immediate future for the library? I know we're sort of you're transitioned out of COVID operations back to regular operations, or to a new regular operations. What does that mean for patrons of any of the three branches of the library?
Well, it means that we've taken the lessons that we learned during COVID and been able to apply them to our traditional library services. So, for example, we realized that some of our book group members still aren't able to come back to the library so that they can participate in library programs via Zoom. We do offer a number of what we call hybrid programming for people to attend either in person if they so choose, or through Zoom. So another really popular program that we see is our weekly chair yoga program with Keith Beasley that takes place out of our Putterham location, and as well as online. We usually have about 25 to 30 people participating online.
And you talk about folks who can't go to the library and programs virtually, but I understand that there's also an idea to bring books to them with a bookmobile. Now, I, like most library patrons, are familiar with Richard Scarry, and we know what that is. That's an apple with wheels, hollowed out with some books, and a worm is going to push it around town. Tell us a little more about that.
Well, there won't be a worm, but it could be a fully electric bookmobile, which I'm very excited about. As I have learned more about the Brookline community, I know that stewardship and sustainability are very important. And so when the opportunity to request a grant for a bookmobile came about, I thought that it was a great time to look into an all-electric vehicle. And Ford makes a chassis for that we can build a bookmobile on. And it will be fully accessible. People will be able to walk on, as well as have a lift gate. So it could even be wheelchair accessible. And then it will have library materials that we'll be able to change out depending on the audience that we will be taking the bookmobile to. So if we're visiting senior housing, we can include large print books, audiobooks, things that are of interest to our senior population. But then if we're visiting Head Starts or in-home daycares, then we can stock it full of wonderful children's materials for the kids.
I love it. I think it's a great idea. I think it also acknowledges that it's not as simple as go on the internet and pick out the thing you want and it will be delivered to you. Our community is much more complex than that, with different needs and different abilities. And this is meeting folks where they're at, quite literally. My understanding is that funding for that is, at the moment at least, up in the air, that it is that it may be included in an operating override that we would vote on May 2nd, in fact. And so, of course, the select board will make that final decision. There's more to come. Stay tuned, but I hope that we get a bookmobile. Let's talk about this coming summer. First, let's start with hours. What are the hours? Are we going to get extended hours? I remember maybe about 10 years ago that now library trustee chair Michael Burstein led an effort to have some weekend hours, but I'm not so sure they're enough. Tell us what we should expect.
Well, our Coolidge Corner Library will be open regular hours in the summer, and that includes both Saturday and Sunday. My hope is to be able to expand hours at Brookline Village as well as Putterham to keep them open on Saturdays. The Saturdays are the library's busiest day. We do more circ per hour. And so I see it as a huge benefit to the community to be able to visit their local libraries on Saturdays.
And, when we talk about geographic fairness, for one library to be open Saturday and Sunday, and for the others to not be open either Saturday or Sunday, maybe there's opportunity to do better. I know it's not just about being open, it's also about the programs. So tell us about some of the programming you expect to have this summer.
Our main focus in the summer is summer reading. And here in Brookline, we do an all ages summer reading program. And the main focus, though, and the really critical portion of our summer reading is geared toward school-age children. I don't know if you're familiar with the term the summer slide, but it's something that we talk about quite a bit in libraries. And that's, when we think about where kids are academically at the end of the school year, and then having the summer break, and then where they begin at the beginning of the next school year, sometimes there's a variance with that. And libraries, as well as other organizations, try and step in and keep that from happening and support reading and literacy development during the summer when they're not in school.
And there may even be an opportunity to merge that with the bookmobile and bring books to kids who are at a Viking sports camp or at the Brookline Music School camp or one of the other camps this summer. If you're in camp all day, you're in camp when the libraries are open, and so you miss out. And this has actually been a real problem for my children who are 12 and 8, who just consume books by the dozen. And I have a bad back just from bringing books back and forth to the Brookline Village branch library. We drop off books 2 or 3 days a week, keeping everybody busy. And so the bookmobile, maybe that's a natural pairing. But it's not just books. You all have lots of other things at the library, and that's it's not brand new, but in the long view of libraries, it maybe wasn't what Ben Franklin had envisioned. So tell us about some of the other things that we can find and even take home with us at the libraries.
Well, the library has a collection, what we call the Library of Things. And that includes many tools and implements that you may use around your home, plus just some fun and games. So for example, the library has 3D printers that we circulate. So you can take those home and print any sort of 3D design that you may come up with. We have board games, button makers, cake pans, Chromebooks, crickets. Have you heard of a cricket? Do you know what that is? Okay, so this is really fun. They are devices that people can use to cut out vinyl stickers or anything that you would need for scrapbooking or craft projects. In addition, they make something called a heat press, and that allows you to take a blank mug or an undesigned mug and then press an image onto it. So if you need a Father's Day gift or something like that, you can create a design and press that onto a mug. Then we have things for crafting like crochet hooks and engravers. And we even have induction cooking kits, technology for loan, energy meters, and then tools that you might need around the house that you can also borrow.
And for those of us who live in apartments or condos or smaller homes, this has a bunch of benefits, right? You can try out something before you buy it. You can get that laser level when you first move in, or in my case, 8 years after you've lived there, hang up all your pictures and then give it back because you're not going to need it again soon, saving your space, your limited space for other things. And of course, America's got, just storage units, storage buildings full of junk that we bought because we needed it once or twice and then don't need it anymore. This is a nice way to save some money, but also save resources, save the planet. So you also, though, you have, maybe this is, you've had it for longer, but it's still interesting to some and to me, movies and music.
That's right. And so we have our physical collection of music. We even have a very small vinyl collection. So for those of you that have record players at home, we do have records for you to check out, but we also loan record players at the library. So you can check out a record player and a record, show your kids what those things are, and if they have no concept of that. And then we also have, aside from the physical items, we do have streaming services. So Hoopla is one of our music providers of streaming services, as well as movies. And then we have another service called Canopy that you can access streaming movies from as well.
So I'm going to come in, I'm going to borrow a rotary phone, a cassette player, and a timing gun for my automobile. But I think I'll probably be leaving empty-handed if that's what I come in for. What about books and magazines? Now, look, like there aren't the newspapers there used to be, but the world's full of books and magazines. How does that work in a modern day library like ours?
Well, yes, we still have our collection of print magazines and newspapers that we have every day for folks at the library. But for those patrons that aren't able to make it into the library, or who are looking for things that are beyond what we may carry in a physical form, we do have a resource that we call Press Reader. And if I may share my screen, I can share that with you right now.
Please do.
Okay, can you see the library's webpage here? Perfect. And so what I would like to share is, if we scroll down to the page, we have our featured e-resources. And the option that I'll be demonstrating today is called Press Reader. And Press Reader provides thousands of magazines and newspapers for our library patrons to access. So what comes up on the main page is some featured magazines and newspapers. So as you can see, we have a number of magazines and then newspapers from all around the world. For folks that may be interested in reading in languages other than English or magazines and newspapers from other countries, you're able to filter your results. So if I click on this, I can choose a country to read their newspapers and magazines, or I can also select a language. So if I was interested in reading some of our Asian language newspapers or Chinese, I can filter that way. And you can see all of the different publications that are carried in that language. And so obviously the library may not be able to subscribe to these in physical form, but we make them available to our patrons in electronic format.
I love it. I love it. I think that, it's another example of providing services for all the folks in town, including folks who are interested in other languages or just in other places. So I'm delighted to see that as well. Thanks for sharing that with us. Let's go back to seeing you. You also, it's worth mentioning, have things like museum passes. Remind us about that. That's a great one.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. The Library Foundation supports our Museum Pass program, which makes many of the area museums available to our patrons at an either free or deeply discounted rate. And those are also accessible online, so you don't even need to come into the library to pick up your pass. You can register for it on the library's website and enjoy your day at the museum.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. And sounds like there's a lot going on. I'm grateful for our library trustees and for the friends of the library. Obviously, you're pulling resources from lots of different places and putting them into 3 libraries. Of course, most people are familiar with Coolidge Corner and Brookline Village, but let's not forget about Putterham, which I know also is a particular respite for seniors down in South Brookline to be social, which is something, if you haven't been in a library in a while, you might not realize there aren't people trolling, going shh every 20 seconds. So don't be loud, don't, make a big scene, but libraries really are community spaces. And there is certainly beneficial interaction there, right? It's not about isolationism. It's about community. So much in the libraries. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on TV here on Brookline Interactive. Any final words? Any last suggestions? Got a book we should check out?
You can check out anything you like, but one of the things I just want to do is thank the residents of Brookline for supporting 3 library locations in a very small area. It just shows how much this community regards its libraries and how much value it places on libraries as a space in the community.
Amanda, thanks for taking time out of your day for coming on the show, and I will see you around town and in the libraries. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you.